Excuse us here. I don't know what's wrong with this. Is the battery? Hey everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Back to the World, my brother and my sister's keeper. I'm Tony.
I'm John.
Thank you guys for coming on board. I know hey man, every night starting off we have technical difficulties, man. So, the music that you may hear in the background, we don't own the rights to. Any comments, questions? Our other phone is steadily telling us that the battery's low, y'all. I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. I have to fix this problem here. I don't know what's happening here, y'all. So we think we got it figured out.
You know, as our studio expand, you know, these type of deals, you know, someone would, would have, it'll be, we'll be more up to date as far as the studios. You know, there's a lot of podcasts that started off, all of them, well, except for the big ones, they started off in rooms, and I've seen some expand to apartments, different rooms, houses, but they all started out small, and they all started up with
Sorry, Cottonelle, we're gonna come back.
Right, they started off, like anything big, it starts out small. So like my partner just said, we have our beautiful issues, not that. It's nothing major. It's just minor things that, like, hang on 1 second.
Thank you.
Like, anyone that's able, that can see see where our improvements can, begin, and reach out to us or DM us, because, we're not ashamed to help, to ask for help, because we know anything big, it's a team effort, right? And I gotta tell you, so you came, now I come up in this jump, I'd be like, okay, push this, the thing go live. So we live. It's not like we're not behind the stage. We live. So hey, what our corrections are live, and so but that's the beauty of growth, because it's small things make a big difference. And so we're gonna make a big difference. And we're gonna make a big difference. So, our tentative, our audience, our members, our social media friends, or those that's viewing us, listen to what we have to say, because we're not here just to be talking. We're here to make an impact. And so, man. So what's going on with you, brother?
Oh man, I'm good, man. just I've been reflecting on the day, today being Juneteenth,
Right.
and the weather has been bad, so been sort of shut in, which wasn't a bad thing. I got a lot done, but you know, I just reflected on the day
Right.
and what the day meant, and what it meant to many others. You know, and you know, when Abraham Lincoln released the Emancipation Proclamation, June 1st, 1863. Okay, well, you know, most of the slaves throughout the rest of the United States supposedly were free, all right? And while slaves throughout the United States were free, the rest of the United States, it just so happened that only the slaves in Texas were still in bondage for 2 more years until June 1865.
That's right.
Right? So, and you know, we didn't have social media at that time. So there was no way that anyone could find out, you know, what had happened around the rest of the world unless they had carrier pigeons, or unless the ship came through.
Oh, let's hear what?
Carrier pigeons. You know, if they had pigeons or whatever, and they would attach a note to them and fly them, and find out if they and write a note to let them know. Well, they didn't do that. Although it had been done hundreds of years before that, you know, in the war between Germany and England. But you know, I digress. But the thing with it's always something. But the thing with the thing with the message was the ship coming from New Orleans to Galveston.
Come on now.
Right? And I think that was General Granger. General Granger made the announcement, but they had slaves on that ship.
Come on now.
So now those slaves already had known that, you know, slaves were free the whole bit. So that's when the slaves became aware in Galveston. But this is what I surmised, though. I surmised that they knew.
Right.
Because I don't see a ship taking 2 years to travel back into the port of Galveston from 1863 to 1865.
Right.
You know, a ship had to at least come through there 2 or 3 more times anywhere at that time, because, you know, navigation wasn't as it is today. You know, so I just got to thinking all about that, man, and then I started thinking about how divisive we are. And today, I can remember before they made Juneteenth a national holiday.
Right.
People around other cities and states knew nothing of
Juneteenth.
They knew nothing about it.
Right.
And then they laughed about it, and they said, y'all were still slaves in 2 years. So you had other blacks start acting like it was blacks' responsibility and it was their fault.
Right.
That they were held in bondage for additional 2 years. And it's just our mentality that makes things so difficult to deal with and embrace.
Right.
You know? So we find a sense of superiority because you may have lived in a state that was released or freed in 63 as opposed to 65.
Right.
What difference does it make when you're still a slave?
Come on, Brian.
You were still a slave. The only thing that I have a problem with is our foremothers and fathers that died within that 2-year period. Died not knowing that they had been freed. You know, that's the thing that that concerns me, and how we react to everything. We always talk about unification a whole bit, but talk about how bad the government treats us and everything. But we have everything that we need to free ourselves from bondage, because not much has changed.
Come on, bro.
You know.
And you know, I can bear witness to their behavior in certain people when you get to talking about, you know, things of that nature. Because if it didn't happen, quote unquote, to them, they detach themselves from it as if it never happened, right?
Absolutely.
And so, you know, people from California, you ain't know nothing about that. You know, New York, I mean, you know, it's very, you know, it's several states that people that who I've actually had that conversation with, right? I say, if it affects one, it affects us all, right?
Absolutely.
And so now we have to, well, it exposes a particular mindset, right?
Yes.
That's so fragmented and easily separated, because we should be crying,
Right.
right? And we should be crying about slavery, period. Right? But to just know that someone of your lineage somewhere, somehow, is still in bondage and being abused and misused, and you saying we don't know nothing about that. Now you know, right? So you know, nothing is sentimental. It's always like, if it didn't happen to me, I don't know about it, right?
And I don't care about it.
But see, that's what makes it so difficult for black people to a particular degree, right? Because it's like you would try to ignore history as if it never happened, right? History didn't happen to us physically, but it happened to our lineage, right? It happened to our ancestors, to where we can talk about history today, right?
Right.
And so now tomorrow we're going to be somebody else's history.
Right.
So therefore, it's the way that we use this moment for a future history now, because you know we can. I mean, and you know, when the ship came in, that was a bill that was signed January the 1st, 1863.
Right.
It's almost like damn, why ain't nobody tell us, right? But how you just mentioned, it wasn't a vehicle to exchange that message, or maybe it was, right? It's just the fact that, hey, it was like, you know, because that divisive mindset was present back then as well. It's like, man, we ain't gonna tell them nothing if they don't know. See, like it's not a, you know, so it can easily become infectious, right?
Right.
So you know, even with slavery, period, because it was always once a year a slave could work his way to freedom. But you look at what he had to do. He had to betray his own, right? And so now that mindset is still active today. You know, so once we can eradicate that mindset and say, wait a minute, let's make it bigger than ourselves, right? When we make it bigger than ourselves, it affects things that's bigger than ourselves, right?
Right.
So we want to be that bellwether for that change that we know is, I mean, that time is demanding. Because if it wouldn't be demanding, we wouldn't be talking about it, right? Because time is not demanding for us to be oppressed. Time is demanding for us to be free. See, so that's why it's so innately empowering to have these conversations, right? Because it's like a child that don't know nothing about slavery, don't know nothing about Juneteenth, don't know nothing about that, right? So we got to teach them so that can never happen again, you know. And that should be the reason, you know, that should be our core reasons, and we as men, to have these conversations, you know.
What I perceive, well, or what I conceived, you know, the minute the minute we don't pass something down, right, it starts to become obsolete. And when it becomes obsolete, then it becomes null and void. And after that, it becomes it never happened, right? You know, when we talk about, I had a conversation with a few guys, and we talked about incarceration and the whole bit. And a lot of guys really don't like talking about it. And you know, I don't necessarily talk about it, but to try to stress a point, I put it this way: there are many things that happen that I can relate back to. But to sit back and just sit down and just reminisce and think about, no, not at all. But there are so many things, there are so many lessons that were there right in front of our faces, and we didn't realize it. And I learned a lot of those lessons right inside. And see, it goes back to unifying. It goes back to coming together for a cause, for a purpose, where we would always do that. If there was anything that looked like it was race war, and it's not always violence, but you know, but violence, and when you feel that you're left out, see, in prison, to be honest with you, it happens the way it's supposed to happen. It means that if there's a brother a brother that comes there, regardless of where he's from, and he's good, and he's solid, and his paperwork is right, if he doesn't have anything, everybody's going to look out for him as a community, right? And that's all the way across the board, okay? If somebody gets in trouble and they owe a debt, but other than, you know, the guy's a good guy, all right? And, you know, if he has a gambling problem, but you like the guy, you know, it's almost like going to rehab. He has to go to rehab. But we're going to give him another chance because we're not going to let anybody hurt him. But we're going to pay his debt. We're going to take care of his debt. And he's going to work it off. Not anything that's going to degrade him. Because we want him to keep his manhood.
Absolutely.
We want him to stand up and be righteous. So, all right, I'm trying to get somewhere here. So now, what happens is, and it's real petty that you will say, that you will think, but let me share something with you. Don't you know that in the institution there's tile squares on the floor? Don't you know those tile squares are real estate? Those tile squares are real estate, meaning that when it's time, like we come out for dinner, we place our chairs on a certain square. And that's where you sit, right? And you claim that spot, or either you inherit that spot. Because every day everyone knows that you sit in these two squares. It was 4 squares, right? And your chair fits in these 4 squares, and that's where, and you know, guys come out and they start counting from the end. After a while, you just know where it is. You come and you place your chair there, and no one else will place their chair there. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, we look at it and we say, man, that's real petty in the whole bit, because I thought it was. But that was the way of the system. And no matter how you felt, no matter how you felt, how stupid it was, or whatever the situation may be, that was the system. And it worked. No one person came and ever overthrew that, because this goes on all throughout the federal system. But now what I'm saying is this: when you have rules that are in place, the whole bit, it's almost every week you got new people coming, and you have to share with them what these rules are. And you see what happens if it ever gets laxed. and you don't enforce it, and I don't necessarily mean, want to stand on somebody, hurt anybody, but you must pass the information on. So see, although I've been gone, there are some things that I may have implemented to make the system run smoother. There's a strong possibility that it's still there in place because it worked. You feel me? That's how our history is. If we don't pass things on, if we don't let the next generation know, the next ones that's coming up, man, they won't give a shit about Juneteenth or anything like that either. There are certain things now that's happening because of social media and everything. A lot of things are getting misplaced the whole bit. And you can sit down and talk to. I was watching a movie the other night. No, they had a game show. And they were asking questions. Who was the first black person to host a major morning newscast program? And they named Montel Williams. They named Montel Williams, somebody else, and right now it was a male though. Okay. And they said, and I think they did say Jane Kennedy, and they said Brian Gumbel the whole bit. These people did not know who Brian Gumbel was, and there was a question before that I just knew some of the younger people should have known. And the guy that was asked the question, he wasn't a young guy. So see, no one passed that information down to him, and you probably say, why would he need to know who was that anyway? He didn't necessarily need to know it, but it's something that he should know because it was history. It was groundbreaking. So I just think that just as the Hebrew carried over to the Jews, and just like the Middle Eastern and the Muslims carried on to today's Muslims, they know thousands and thousands, if not millions of years of their history. They know everything. We keep saying that, our history is so splintered. It is. But now we're supposed to be free. Then how come we're not attaching these pieces together? That's what I wanted to add. We need to keep up with our history so that it won't be forgotten. And they say if you know better, you do better. So therefore, if you knew what happened and you know that you may be living now, or in some instances worse, then now you can move on and do better because now you have what we're experiencing now to compare with whatever happened yesterday.
I wanna speak on something that's personal. As you said, real freedom. Mm. I never knew I wasn't free until I was released from the institution. I never knew I wasn't free, right? Because growing up as a youth, you don't think of freedom.
Right.
I know I didn't, right? But being confined physically, for all of those years.
Right.
When that day came,
right,
I felt that freedom.
Yes.
I said, hey, to be free is, it's two prongs, because you're gonna be light, but then you're gonna be heavy, because now you're just not, if it's just you that's free, it's not the same, right?
Right.
So it's like a slave got free. We're gonna speak of a particular woman, Harriet Tubman. She left the plantation and came back, see, trying to get more people. Because it wasn't about her, it was about the people. And why do we keep mentioning the people? Because the people is parallel to freedom. Now, a system is always put in place to keep things organized, or supposed to be organized properly, right? So with that system that they had back then, it wasn't nothing new. Because when you go to the Germans, they was like, hey, but the Jews said something so significant. If black people were to incorporate that into their spirit, never again, see? Never again. But what has happened, it's a different type of experiment that black people went through that got us so fragmented. See? Because envy, jealousy, false pride, betrayal, disloyalty, and all those other characteristics started on the plantation. We can see it when we were growing up. It's like, and we're not, ostracizing no one of a different color, meaning blacks, light-skinned, dark-skinned, you know what I'm saying? But it's like a black woman, a dark black woman back in the day, she was considered ugly just because she was dark-skinned. And a light-skinned woman was considered beautiful. I looked at it that way too, until I began to look at things different. Now I know the black woman is just beautiful. So, but what happened, it was light versus dark, tall versus short, big versus small. See? Something was always dividing us. Always. See? And if one of us had the fortitude or the testicle fortitude to learn how to read and then to teach others how to read, that was a crime that cost you your life. See? So no one has ever been through that vicissitudes or those changes like black people. So now we have a book club. There's black authors that's growing. We encourage you to grow because the story has to be told. Not nothing about, you can hear people saying, if you don't know about slavery, you'll never know about it. But we do know about slavery. Mm-hmm. We just don't know how to stop it from continually existing. See? Because the chains were removed in 1963 for some, 1965 for others. Bondage, the physical bondage was removed. But some of our ancestors, when that day came, they didn't have the mental fortitude or the knowledge on where to go. So it's like, damn. We find that in institutions as well. People, they get out and don't know where to go. See? So we want to change that dynamic. We want to have somewhere for them to go. Why? Because we've been there. We've been through those roads. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to keep repeating it when we know. We know now. We know how to pave a road. See? We built a system. Not just for us, but for the people. The people. Not just black people. See? For the people. Yes, we want black people too. Absolutely. So black people, brown people, it's amazing how our brown people, our Hispanic brothers and sisters, they come here speaking their language, operating under the unifying principles of unity, and they building communities. And we laughing at them. That's amazing. So we need to stop laughing and start learning. Then we can start earning because we have something in place to change that dynamic. So we implore our people to stop looking at my partner Tony and I as we're just some characters. We have something in place. Yes,
everything that we need to free us from this mental bondage that we're in, the psychological bondage, without having to ask the government for anything. We possess it already. All it has to do is it just has to be ignited. It just has to be ignited, and almost to say, to be triggered. When we say we should wake up and we should take charge and take control, I'm not necessarily talking about, coming to arms. I'm not talking about going to war. I'm not talking about any of that. All we have to decide to do, see, it's a decision that needs to be made. We just have to sit down and decide. Each one helps one. And if that happens, and it becomes contagious, it'll make a difference in our lives. As my partner said, he never thought that he was in bondage. He never knew he was not free. So it's the same thing. It's like many of us are just operating from the principle that we are in bondage. And you have many of us that are operating under the principle that we are free and we're not. The job has hypnotized you and made you think that you're worth. Your worth is greater than what it is, because you have an employment that pays you more than the other person, then that deems you greater than that person. We've been so dependent upon titles and status until we just step on one another. We just walk all over one another. But I gave an example earlier. Let's say you had 5 to 10 of our basic essentials. If we had that, and I go back to that incarceration thing. If you had someone that does laundry, you had someone that cuts hair, you had someone that washes clothes, you had someone that cleans the unit. I said laundry. You had someone that cleans the unit. You had someone that sells food, right? See, if you had all 5 to 10 of these different things, because then you had somebody that did tattoos, so somebody's gonna want that. You had somebody that did tattoos, you had somebody that did art. So now, in every one of these units, they had this, and a unit was a community.
Largest.
Right. So people never had to leave their unit to have any of these things done. So what I'm getting at is this. If you have all these things in the unit, everyone is going to patronize each and every one of those businesses. So each and one of those hustles, if you want to call it that, but each one of those businesses are going to flourish. Why? Because everybody else in the unit, they work for Unicorp, they work in the kitchen, they work in laundry, they work in commissary. So they're bringing revenue back to the community in order to circulate. See, it's the universal principle that makes this happen. And as I told you, inside that institution, they call it adversity university. Everything functioned the way it's supposed to in its purest form. Right? And I told you there was a gentleman that I was incarcerated with, had a 230 IQ. His name was Aldrich James. He worked for CIA. This man, I listened to him when we used to converse, and I listened to the things that he said. I was amazed that he was so smart. I wanted to see his brain. And what I mean, literally, I wanted his head to just be open so I could see what a 230 IQ brain looks like. Because now here's the thing. I don't know what my IQ is, but I have been tested, right? And I know that this man is so smart, and the things that he said, it's just that everything that he was saying I understood. But the way he give it, and see, it's almost like playing tennis. If you're a female, it's almost like playing against, if you're a male, it doesn't matter. You're playing against Serena Williams. And you are a novice. And Serena's a pro. But yet you get up there, you catch all of her serves and most of her volleys. And you're like, wow. She's a pro, she's good. So what does that say about me? So when I was listening to this guy, I was waiting for him to say something that I just didn't understand. He never did. But what he said and the way he said it was so eloquently. See, there's a difference in trying to express it and then understanding it. See, I understood it. I just didn't know how to express it the way that he did. But this man told me he never lived in a ghetto. He never lived around many blacks. And he worked for the CIA, right? This man told me that if the black community would just work together, circulatory, their financing and everything throughout the community, he said that that will help many of your people overcome poverty, because this is the way you take care of your communities one at a time. He wasn't telling me shit I didn't know. I lived in a ghetto. But see, he studied it. Right? So then he said this. He said that it's just a matter of doing so, but you would need to be careful. Right? Because the government doesn't want you to do that. See, in other words, if they knew that, it basically said if they knew that you would mine after you became self-sufficient, then they'll be okay. But they feel that when you get on your feet, now you're going to act the ass, and now you're going to try to punish them the whole 9 yards, and that's their fear, right? This man is telling me this. And this was about 2000. This is about 2009, 2010. The reason I know, because the Saints hadn't won the Super Bowl yet. It was playoff time around that time. So this man told me that, no, long before that though, he told me in about 2006 or 7, this man said that Jay-Z was going to be a billionaire. He said Jay-Z was going to be a billionaire. And he said, why? He said, because there's going to always be one or a few that slip through the cracks. And he said, you know why? He said, why? Because it gave the others hope.
That's right.
This man told me that. I didn't need him to tell me that.
Come on now.
But I understood everything he said. You know what his job was in the CIA? To go and bring this evil and uproot and manipulate foreign governments. That's what he did for a living. And that's what he was telling me, how to circumvent what the government does to our community. And he says that, and see, he was a war buff. He was a he knew he knew all the wars that had ever taken place throughout history, right? And he studied it. And he was basically telling me how we can win the war within ourselves.
Come on, bro.
If you divide two people that are getting along, don't you know you can control the narrative? And that's what he was saying.
Absolutely.
So when they saw two countries becoming friendly, they had to get in. What they call that? They had to throw salt in the wound. And that's the way you control a situation and manipulate. This was long before any 48 laws of power. This is in the Bible, the Quran, and the Torah. Manipulation went on, man, all the way back since the days of Abraham. Moses, Noah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So we must wake up and unify. And that's the only way we're going to achieve. It's the only way we're going to succeed.
You know, my partner and I, we talk about a lot of things, right? But we never disregard freedom, you know. And it's not just financial freedom, but it is financial freedom. Because I know that sounds oxymoronic, but when you free the mind, history is how you free the mind. It don't, history don't confine the mind, it frees it. It's the lack of knowledge that confines the mind. And the mind is, the only thing that can limit the mind is a thought.
Right.
So what we implore and we encourage, let's begin to use our divine attributes in a positive way. See, when you want for your brother what you want for yourself, envy can't come in. See? Vanity can't come in. But, trying to slip through a crack, no, let's kick the door down. Forget it. Let's build our own. See, we want to build our own based on justice, based on truth, based on equality. I don't care what kind of bird it is in the sky. Under a law, they all fly equal.
Yeah.
You want to be an eagle? Go ahead. Everybody don't want to be. Somebody might want to be a dove. Somebody might want to be a parrot, but a parrot can't think. They just repeat what they hear. See? Somebody might want to be there.
Yeah.
There is no compulsion. Just be yourself. So, with the Juneteenth celebration, I heard on the radio today that now they're going to make it another black federal holiday. Like, what is it, Martin Luther King Day. See?
Yeah.
It was blood for that. So let's not ignore the blood that was shed. But we don't want to repeat the bloody wars. That's already happened. We have a mental warfare and a spiritual warfare that we have to battle now. And like my partner said, when we look at one another, what do we see? As a matter of fact, when we look at ourselves, you have no right to be poor. No right. Somebody want to keep you poor. But the universe, and we don't want to sound spooky, the universe does not want you poor. A mentality that can infuse knowledge into your thinking does not want you ignorant.
No.
A tree not going to come talk to us, but a tree is just as natural as anything else that's natural. It's not going to come talk to us, but we can learn a lot from a tree. I was talking to someone who was talking about a palm tree. How it takes so long to grow. Well, once it's grown, it delivers. That's us. That's Sonetquity. See? So we ask our audience, our members, our friends, our associates, our family members, help us help ourselves. It's a universal law. Want for somebody what you want for yourself, there is no robbery. But we have all these type of suggestions in our communities. It's my partner now. We ain't fall out of heaven. We don't walk around like we self-righteous. We don't do none of that. We use our experience as an example. He was able to read before he went to Hidden University, and so was I. We went through the halls and went through the walls of schools and universities and colleges. Then we took a broader approach to the streets. Okay? So we're not sitting there self-righteous, we're sitting there honest. So the people with the influence, come on board. Help us. Help us help ourselves. Because we have a universal principle with our system. Our system don't take nothing. It gives. Equally. So we have a universal principle. We have a universal products, and we have a universal mission. So we employ help white people, brown people, yellow, any nationality, all nationalities. Because when it comes to business, when you look at Amazon, see, there is no discrimination. With Sonetquity, there's no discrimination. There's no discrimination. So we want to put the excitement to entertain, to educate as well.
Yes.
The triple E's. So come on board, visit our website. Go to our bookstore. Purchase your product. And remember that this time has been paid for. Let's use our divine attributes in a positive way. Remember, a system is designed to keep things organized. We have a positive system.
Absolutely.
Okay? So again, remember that a price has been paid for us to speak. It's been paid. So let's get out financial debt as well. Let's get out of mental and spiritual debt, because that's been paid for too. Yes,
Thank you guys for joining us tonight on this special night, this special occasion. Look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday, another episode of Back to the World, my brother and my sister's keeper, and all things Sonetquity. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace.
Oh man, my knees.
You got it? Up to the top.